in addition to what Jonathan was saying, the two things I'm really interested in is the retrieval of any footage in the neighborhood by neighboring residences of the patterns of behavior, any particularly unusual vehicles that can't be attributed to any of those residences or to a particular business or to a specific individual that could be discounted. It's that pattern of life happening in the neighborhood, which I think in the preceding weeks, which is really key, because anybody who's going to be carrying out a malicious attack, a murder, assassination, a kidnapping, they're going to plan their operation remotely. They will retrieve as much information through open source, going onto Google Earth, looking at various things, seeing if the fabric, the landscape has changed right up until the very last minute for when they actually carry out their operation. And the second thing is the cellular data, and the cellular data from the local towers. It'll be mapping again and attributing some of the IMEIs to various residents and determining what
some of the
foreign ones, the IMEIs to the residents. So the particular handsets to...
What's an IMEI?
IMEI. So that's the identifying number to each handset. So your cell phone will have a totally different one to Jonathan's as it will to mine. But what it will do is it's your own personal signature to your device. And it will be very easy and very simple to actually go through that data very, very quickly to determine, okay, this IMEI is the immediate neighbor to the left of Nancy. This IMEI is the neighbor to the immediate right, opposite, so on and so forth. And what other IMEIs, and they can be whitelisted, and then you can narrow it down to any new IMEIs that have come in. You can then attribute those to DoorDash guys, to delivery guys, to UPS, to all those until you start narrowing the field to, is there one that keeps showing up? And it should be done over a period of time.
So Will, I mean, here we are going on, we're 2.5 going on 3 weeks since she was taken.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have that data already? Should we be concluding now the guy did not have a phone on him?
I don't think he'd be professional enough to go on this operation. Well, I mean, the way he was carrying his firearm, I would say, is indicative of his level of professionalism. Yes, he had a ski mask, but hey, who doesn't these days? I think they may very well have that data. But we did see, Megyn, you showed that footage, was it yesterday or the end of last week, where there was someone up a ladder on a neighboring house retrieving one of the cameras which was there. So that would tell me that they haven't gathered all that data yet, but I would hope that the network's working with them, certainly on the cellular data, and would be providing that pretty quickly and expediently. They may be sitting on it whilst they're joining this jigsaw puzzle of evidence or intelligence together.
I would be, if I was, and they probably are. That's one of the first things the Bureau does in most investigations. So I'm pretty sure that they've pulled that information. But I would be going back and pulling that all the way back, month or months before, and looking at that period of time. I mean, I didn't even know until this show that there was this other picture that you guys showed. I didn't see any report of that for whatever reason. And so that shows you that, and also the Brian Kohlberger case, they went back and looked at how many times that phone had pinged around where he did that killing prior to that. So they have to go and look at that period in time, a month or as long as they can, and see if there's anybody pinging, because he may not have had his phone on that time, but the other time he might have. And I think that's very important.
And, we also have to say it is possible they're doing that, as in Kohlberger, when they did look like Keystone Cops, and we were all like, oh my God, how can they not have caught anybody? Crime that happened mid-November and they made the arrest Christmas week. That's longer than we are right now. It's about 6 weeks later he got arrested, and here we are 2.5 weeks. And so they could be doing, in this case, what they did in Kohlberger, which is maybe they do have a cell phone that they suspect, and they're running the numbers to see how many times that cell phone has come by Nancy's and who it might be associated with. And maybe they are waiting on genetic genealogy on DNA that was found inside that. Like, that's how they got Kohlberger, But in that case, and when we don't know in this case if they have, in that case, they knew they had something belonging to the murderer in hand, that knife sheath. In Nancy's case, we just don't know. They haven't said that. All they've said is that there's DNA inside the house that doesn't match Nancy and doesn't match somebody they would have expected to find it from, like a maid, et cetera, or Nancy's relatives. So
I'd be looking.
Does that mean it's the abductor? No.
Yeah. Do you remember one of the things that we mentioned last week, Megyn, which was about the 70% rule? And this applies obviously in kidnappings. And 70% of kidnappings, if this is indeed a kidnapping, there will be someone close to the target, to the hostage, that will have some connectivity. And that happens in the vast majority of cases. And having worked a number of these cases over the last 30 years, I've found that always to prove out. So again, they may be holding back on giving information, and to a certain extent, let's hope so. And it's not the sheriff just being incompetent and spilling his guts every 5 minutes on contradictory statements. So let's hope that the Bureau are holding on to some of that data. They may not necessarily be sharing it with the sheriff. I don't know, but if I was them, I wouldn't be until I've got a few more pieces in the puzzle figured out.
And I also think
they reportedly want this case, and they can't get it because it's up to the sheriff to give it. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I also think that they should look at, so when these other pictures and any videos they find, as they go back and they say, okay, this is the first time we see this individual, or the first time we see this phone ping at this period of time, I would be looking at who was working in that area at that time. Was anybody newly hired? She has a new roof. We talked about, is that when that occurred? Because that's how you can kind of start to see a timeline on when somebody started to key in on this house. And that's why I'm just not really focused. Your previous guest you had on before us said a comment, and I love it. Kidnappers don't want to take babies and old people because they're really hard to deal with. Babies, I think they could do that and get away with it if it was a very rich family. I've worked a case where usually it's parental kidnapping, where they kidnap their own kid. But with an elderly person who's injured, I just can't. I can't wrap my head around somebody injuring the person that is 84 years old in bad health that they're going to try to get money out of. I would see them tying her up and carrying her out before I would see them injuring her. And that's why I keep going back to this burglary gone wrong. And if we see that this individual was casing the neighborhood, that leads, I think, more credibility to that. And in which case, again, I would have expected him, because the way that Will was just talking about, kind of the stupidity that he showed and the arrogance and the comfortableness. Those people, when they get into a situation that they're not familiar with, which is like, oops, I just shot this person or I just hurt them inside the house, they will sit there and panic potentially for 40 minutes or more before they figure out a way to move her. And if that's the case, then I just think she's going to be within probably a 2-hour window somewhere in that area. And so this is one thing I do want to point out. It's a little off topic, but if anybody saw anything on that day, which I believe was the morning of February 1st.
The 1st.
If they saw anything within 2 hours of that home that looked like somebody was burying something or they were moving suspiciously within 2 hours of Tucson, they should report that, because if law enforcement could go there and find DNA of Nancy and DNA of anybody else, then, I mean, it's right there. And I think that there's a possibility that somebody saw something 2 hours away and never even thought about it. And if I was wrong, that's the messages that this sheriff should be putting out, is that people should be looking that far out.
International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never-ending list of reasons gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. Gold can thrive during uncertainty, which is why it is a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It gives you peace of mind given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. See if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text MK to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider letting Birch Gold help you diversify with gold, so you too can have peace of mind regardless of the uncertainty. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.